Welcome to the Profit Talks podcast, hosted by the Orange County Inland Empire SBDC Network, funded in part by the U.S. Small Business Administration and the California Office of the Small Business Advocate. This show is the go-to resource for business owners seeking empowerment, education, and resources to succeed. Join us as we connect you with experts, share the triumphs of fellow entrepreneurs, and reveal the wealth of assistance available to you today to level up your business. So let's go. Let's dive in and learn more. It's all about leveling up. Today we're going to talk about leveling the playing field and how today's students can't just go to college. They got to be more competitive than the other guy. It's a fight to get in. It's a fight to get good grades. And if they're smart, they go out and get a mentor, a coach, an assistant like our guest here today. Welcome, if you will, to our studio. We don't get many in the studio. Let's turn the lights on so we can see him here. We have with us today Rudy, and is it, I'm going to say it wrong here. Chavarria.
But if you want to get it ethnic, Chavarria.
Chavarria, right? There we go. Okay, now we got it all
either one.
Here. And Rudy and I have just been, we're fast friends here because his interests are my interests. His background is similar to, weaves into some of my background.
Yes, sir.
So we'll get into all that a little bit here. But today, let's talk about first, what is this College Ed Tech, this company that you've created here? What is it?
College Ed Tech is a company that was born through years of me mentoring actually college students that I'd hired through the years of me having a marketing company.
Okay.
And
we'll talk about that in a minute because that'll take us down a whole rabbit hole. We talk about your prior life and your prior marketing thing here. But.
And so I just realized college students don't know what they don't know.
And, not the truth. They think they know it all. But
and then when they graduate, they're like, oh my God, I don't have anybody to give me a plan. And now I've got to come up with my own. And a lot of them didn't. And they were employees from all over the U.S. And I befriended a lot of them and helped them any way I could, help them prepare to the resume, which now LinkedIn is the new resume, and how to go about getting letters of recommendation from people.
But even more than that, nobody worked with me through college. I went to the University of Michigan wearing my Go Blue hat because we beat Ohio State. It's all that matters is we beat Ohio State. No matter how crappy our season was this year, we beat Ohio State. So I won't take it off for the rest of the year here. I was an honors student at the University of Michigan. That's 100 million years ago. I was in the honors program there. And I went to see my, what they call them, advisors?
College counselors.
College counselor once in 4 years as I was getting ready to leave. I was, what do I do next? And I don't know, we can tell you what courses to take, and we can give you. I felt completely on my own. And what happened was, I came out of college. I was a history and political science major and ran the college radio station. We'll talk about college radio. Had all these kind of things, and I thought, I didn't know what to do. Default, I said, keep going to school. So I went to law school. What else are you going to do? And I tried going to law school. We've been married for a year. I hated law school, but I ran the college radio station down there as well.
Nice.
And maybe I said, maybe I should get into radio instead of this other stuff. So I did that for a while, and that led to this many years later. So cut to what upset me was, here I got all this great education. I got all these great classes. I got all these high grades. And for a while, when I went out and looked for a job, I'd say, when do I start? And they'd say, hold on, have you ever sold anything? Have you ever done? I said, look, I've been in school. I haven't had a chance to do anything. I got all straight A's, University of Michigan, honors program, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, but have you sold anything? There was nothing. I hadn't thought through, why was I taking history and political science? Just because I was interested in it? And that was the way they fed me. Oh, you like 14th century French literature? We got a great program on that. Nobody ever said, why do you want to take that? Or what's the plan? What are you doing with this?
Yeah.
And I just have many kids then and now graduate. They think all I have to do is go through in good grades. That's all my father thought. And then any company I hire you with any degree, French literature, philosophy, political science, and history. No, it doesn't work that way. Today, you've got to be intentional. You've got to really think through. There's got to be a plan. Where do I go? Why am I going? Why am I studying this? And what do I want to go? You can change along the way, but we didn't have any plan. We just graduated and thought, now what?
Yeah. And that has been my passion, to enlighten students before they graduate, before they even get into college, juniors and seniors in high schools, is to open their eyes.
Yeah.
And
because I was very bitter, I'll say, for a while.
Yeah,
in my late 20s and 30s, I came out and I thought, why did I do all this if it didn't mean anything? If I'd wanted to be a professor, if I'd wanted to go into teaching history, outstanding.
Yes.
But that was never my intention. I don't know what my intention was. It was just go to school, get a good grade, and then go out and look around, and somehow this would open doors for me. It didn't open any doors.
And nothing's changed, Paul. It's the same way as it was back then, because even more so now, college student enrollment at universities and colleges has dropped since COVID. Up to, I'm not sure what it is now, but I remember it was up to 24%. Student enrollment dropped. And I heard that even some of the qualifications to get into college is because it is a money-making business.
Machine. Yeah, more so than ever. Oh, my God. These
more
kids
so than ever.
come out with hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, or $100,000 and more in debt. I thought it was a lot that I spent $4,000 or $5,000 a year in the 70s.
Yes. And then I want to also talk about mental health, because you get a student who graduates, and one, they realize, oh my God, I have no experience. And all I have is good grades. I was valedictorian, blah, 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 4.0. But then that's not enough, because someone's going to say, I don't care about your GPA. What have you, like you said, what have you sold?
What have you done?
What have you done? What is your experience? That's the key thing. What is your experience? I don't have any.
Because I was in school working hard to do this. I thought that was all I had to show. I checked this box, and now you're going to give me an automatic pass into the next world.
So with College Ed Tech, what we do is we pair students up with mentors that have either been there, done that. For example, if it was you, Paul, you'd be the perfect mentor for somebody who's in high school, a junior in high school or a senior in high school, and we pair them up with you, and you're like, look, kid, I've been there, done that. This is what you need to do, because if you want to get into entertainment, radio or TV, you need to be spending your weekends with me, volunteering for free, and I will give you a letter of recommendation at the end of your semester. I will sign it. You can put it up on your LinkedIn resume, and bingo. Your summer of your junior year, before you become a senior, you spent your summer with me, and you've got a letter of recommendation for it, and you've got experience. You go through your next 4 years of education, you come back every summer, you've got 4 years of experience with me, with recommendations, and then here's the key thing, is your networking ability or possibilities, because you, Paul, start to introduce them to people as in, hey, this kid's... And
ideas.
Exactly.
It's a combination of sort of apprenticeship, internship, and I thought college was the one thing. When I went to college, that's all. I partied a little bit too, I'll get that. But that was part of the college experience, being away from home, and that was a good part of it, having fun, being on your own, taking care of yourself. But I really didn't have any educational... I loved history. And I took a political science class, and I immediately loved that. I was always fascinated with politics. And I don't know what I was going to do with either one of those things. I just stumbled into college radio and never thought about it. I had read the morning announcements in high school, so I thought I had a good voice. And I was very interested in music. Thank you.
Yeah.
And WMYK, K94. That voice I practiced for years. So I thought I had some little things here, but I had other things I could have done and thought, too. And I liked acting. I liked doing some other things.
Yeah.
And I was interested in business, too, and other things. So I just thought, college, you went through this, and that was like going through boot camp. It just proved that you were mentally tough and above the grade, and I went to a good school. I don't know why, it never occurred to me, and nobody ever tuned me in. I'm so mad that in 4 years, nobody took me aside and said, this is great that you're doing this, but why are you doing this?
I was on campus one time coming down the elevator of Cal State Fullerton, and just in that elevator ride down, I was talking to another student, and I just started blurting out things that she needs to do to get a job, because she was going to be graduating in 2 weeks. And by the time we got to the bottom floor, the door opened, we walked out, and she turned around and she looked at me and she goes, oh my God, she goes, I've been at this school for 4 years, and you've taught me more about my future in this elevator ride than anything I've learned in college. That shocked me. I was sad.
Yes.
And she just had this look in her face like she was completely lost. And I felt bad for that.
And I'm not trying to bash higher education. I loved the University of Michigan. It was an outstanding school. I learned a lot. But they were there just to sell me whatever I was interested in. I felt like I was going into a cafeteria, and they said, hey, you want some hot dogs? Hey, try this food. Have you ever tried this? Here's a food you've never tried before. And they opened the world to me. And they would love to feel like this and try. And pretty soon we're down all these rabbit holes, none of which had anything to do with my future career. Oddly enough, what I found on the side, working in radio, turned out to be more or less my career. But it wasn't college and the courses I took. It was something I stumbled onto on campus that became a passion and a purpose and gave me a life.
One of the things that I can see, you're telling me a bit about your history and how you got to where you are.
I'm bitter still about this.
Well, but no, the reason why I bring this up is because I tell students who don't know what they want to do, let's start with what your natural born gifts are.
Yes.
Your parents will be able to tell you, you're good at this, he's good at that, she's good at that, and then you should listen to that, whether it's your parents or your teachers, your high school teachers, or somebody who knows you, your aunt, uncle, will tell you, you're good at this, is what you should do because it comes naturally. So I tell them, start with what you're naturally good at, and then from there, go get an education based on that.
Amazingly, my father and mother never sat me down and said, what do you want to do in life, and what are you going to study, or where you're going to study. My teachers never did in high school. My counselor that I saw once never did. My professors never did. Nobody ever asked me that question until I graduated. And I did what I suspect many do, particularly if you go to a really good school and you get really good grades. I just thought I'd keep going and do something. I don't want to go out in the real world. I went to law school by default, not because I was interested in law school, just because it seemed safe. I'll stay in school. I'll get a master's. I'll do something else. One of my relatives is just doing this. Not my relatives, but she's related to me through marriage here. And she graduated from UC Irvine, and she is not done anything with it, and now she's thinking about going back to get a master's. And I said, I know exactly why, because school was easy, school was fun.
Yes.
Let's just stay in school.
And I brought up mental health a little bit ago, is because you factor in all of that, and then it starts to sink in, and then the depression sinks in, and then the anxiety sinks in.
Particularly if you got $100,000 or $200,000, you got to pay off.
Yes, and then, so that's why what we do is we pair students up with mentors who have been there, done that, and like I brought you up earlier, pair you up with a student who wants to do this, and you would lead them, and then at the same time they're like, what kind of class should I take? And you're like, no, don't take that class. This is what you need. You should take 2 business law classes, so this way you know about some business and you know about some law contracts and all that stuff and agreements and and
so the obvious question is, who pays for this? Is this another burden on the parents? Is this another cost for the student?
Great question. Right now it's the parents will pay for it, but I'm working on changing that as we speak. It's been that way for a year, where the parents or the grandparents pay for it as a gift to the student. Because again, I can tell you how many times we've set up booths at high school, college fairs, which has been great because the high schools let us in with our booths because they think it's a great thing. And the parents and grandparents will walk up to me, my grandson doesn't think I know anything because I don't have a Snapchat account and I've got a Facebook account, and that's for old people.
I can't tell them anything,
and so they love it. But what we're working on now is where we actually will do a contract with the college, so this way it's part of the tuition for the student. So they show up, and then it gets outsourced to us. We're actually involved on campus, setting up booths, doing seminars on campus, really marketing, because that's my background, is marketing to students. And it goes back to that whole, students don't know what they don't know, so you have to lead them.
And I didn't know where to go. I guess I knew there was a counseling center, and I think I actually went in twice. I went in once early to ask about something, and I never saw him again until 4 years later, I said, what do I do now? And they're like, you're asking us? So that's what we try to do, is to get out there. Right now it's considered B2C, business to customer, but next it's business to business, and that will be college campuses where we go in and we say, I can't tell you the numbers. I'm thinking through my head here. Friends of mine, relatives of mine whose kids have gone to great schools, worked really hard to get into good schools like UC Irvine or other places, and came out with nothing. And now they're working at Starbucks.
I see that all the time.
Why did you go through this whole exercise and the money and everything else? It was interesting. Maybe it made you a more well-rounded person, but it didn't deliver what it's supposed to, which is a career.
And this is how I see it trickling down. You know that phrase, get them while they're young?
Yeah.
Because I can't tell you how many doctors, how many lawyers have told me they work with colleagues that absolutely hate their job. And I'm like, whoa, what do you mean? And
I know many who graduate. I left law school, but I kept in contact with some who stayed and became lawyers, and many of them said the same thing. I hate this, but I didn't know what else to do.
Yeah. And that trickles down to, unfortunately, drinking or drugs, and they become alcoholics.
Divorce,
abuse, and anger, and it's just, God, that's no way to live. And unfortunately, some families do say, if you don't become a doctor, I'm not paying for law school, or I'm not paying for your college, and they get not tricked, but they get pushed into it rather than, look, hey, this is what I want to do. And I love those stories because I had a hernia, right? And I had to get it fixed.
Where did that come from?
No,
okay.
Well, hold on. Here,
nice segue.
Yeah, I know. So I get it fixed, and my wife's, look, you got to go to this doctor, blah, blah, because she works at a hospital too. And so I go to this guy, young guy, probably like maybe early 30s, and I said to him, because when he did the physical for me, he just real thorough. He sat with me for more than 15 minutes, and you've heard that story. Doctors who spend more than 15 minutes with their patients are less sued. This guy was like 20 minutes.
But they don't want to.
Exactly. This guy, you could tell he wanted to. And so after I went back, it was all done, doing the last checkup, and I said to him, how did you know you wanted to be a special surgeon and that just hernias? And he said to me, he leans back, puts his clipboard between his arms, crosses his arms, and he said, I was a 5th grade school teacher for 3 years. And I said, no wonder why you're so good with people, because you had to deal with a class of 5th graders, you had to deal with their hormones and all that stuff, you had to deal with parents, the principal.
Right.
I go, no wonder why you're so good at what you do. And he said, I always had a feeling I wanted to get into medical school. He goes, but it wasn't until I was teaching that it just kept itching me, and finally I'm here. This guy's waiting list is like 6 months because he's so sought after. And so that's my point.
Now, we do know today is different than my era in one sense. It is harder to get into the good schools. I just had to have good grades and a good SAT score.
Yeah.
Now you have a 4.0 or higher because you got some bonus points and you got an outstanding SAT score, but you still have to show that you cured cancer, or you volunteered to clean up Mount Everest, or you did something spectacular.
Yes, because everybody has 4.0. You heard that story about Harvard was being sued because there were some people that were like, hey, we got 4.0, and they're like, everybody has 4.0 that applies to you.
4.0.
And so here's my advice to some parents, if I may, that if your son or daughter is a junior or senior or freshman, 8th grade, make sure as soon as they get into school, get them into clubs. Any kind of club. My son or daughter, they're hermits. Okay, fine. Get them into a club that is...
Esports.
Exactly. Yeah, esports. Get them into a club that is for science, anything that they enjoy. And if there isn't a club, encourage them to start their own club. There you go. And because there's nothing more attractive when the person who looks at the application sees like, wow, they started a club. Wow, it's got 400 students in it. Or blah, 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 blah. And they've got letters of recommendation from their advisors. They were in the local city news. And that's the kind of people that you, as somebody who is in admissions, and I've had many conversations with these admissions people, they're like, we want to look for somebody that's going to make our school look good, so this way we can say that person went to our school.
Yeah, exactly. And don't laugh at esports. We do a show called the Esports Connection here, and we talk about, because we're at the University of California, Irvine, just off campus here in the Applied Innovation Center. Why do I say that? Because Irvine was one of the first to start offering scholarships to esports programs, and now it's been copied around the country.
Yes.
And particularly community colleges where they don't have a football program and other things. It's a way to get the kids involved. It's a way to keep the alumni there, and it's something they really love to do. So huge opportunities, huge scholarships thing. Don't learn to bounce a basketball. Learn to move a mouse.
Yes. It's completely changed. Everything has changed, and the old school thinking, you got to do it in sports. No, you can do esports.
Let's talk about, I got to delve into your past. When you open that door, I got to at least go down it for a minute. I wanted to wait a while.
Okay.
So you came out of, Cal State Fullerton, and you got into music. You got into promoting bands and records and the music industry?
Yeah. I quit school. And because I didn't know what I was there for.
Same story. Okay. Why am I here?
Why am I here? And I loved the music, the entertainment. Was a songwriter in bands and started.
And you sing still.
And I sing still. And I started a record company called Rude Records because all my buddies or friends would say, hey, instead of Rudy, they'd say, hey, Rude, what's up?
Yeah.
And Rude Records.
Now, that's pretty amazing. Just saying that. I'm going to start a record company. Did you still pressing records in those days, or was it CDs?
It was CDs and cassettes, and this was in '93. And I got distribution through the Navarre Corporation, which is now, of course, closed. And all my records are on Tower Records, Music Plus, Virgin Megastore,
So you're signing bands, and did you have a recording studio around here somewhere?
No, I made deals with other recording studios. I found some recording studios that they were also musicians, the owners, and since I had a marketing company which marketed to college radio station, college newspapers across the U.S. and Canada, I said, look, you record my bands and I'll market your records for free. So that's how which is another thing that students need to learn.
College radio, we could talk,
Oh,
we
yeah.
could do a whole show.
Yeah,
I started, and I'm from the 70s, right?
Yeah.
College radio had just started, most colleges.
FM, yes.
FM was brand new in the early 70s, right when I went to college. And we were one of the first. University of Michigan was an early adapter. We moved from the carrier current to the real FM frequency, and we had a station. They're still there, WCBN.
Nice.
So it was the proving ground. All the record labels had college reps, and this is where they broke records or tested records or tried stuff out on the college market. It was easier to do it. And in many of these colleges, like at Michigan, it was the only radio station we could listen to. There was no internet. And we couldn't get to stations from Detroit as we're too far away. So we had either a local crappy radio station or a college radio station, and a lot of kids listened.
Yeah.
So it was a huge market. And for years, I just thought college radio was a thing, again, that's almost died. Most colleges are barely hanging. UCI has one, but many of the other colleges, I'm sorry to say, have dropped this program because they thought they were graduating DJs, and DJs have gone away. For the most part. That's all robot stations.
Yeah,
now.
Spotify and all that, and AI
so
and all that.
We both kind of work in different sides of the aisle. I was in college radio, and that led to a career in real radio, and that led to, many years later, me doing this as live podcasting, internet radio.
Yeah.
So that thing has been a theme in my life here. Do you find any themes or anybody? The music industry has completely changed from 10, 20 years ago.
Yes, now it's more influencers, it's more social media that markets. But I have this feeling that's not even going to last. I think it's at the early stages of social media as far as using it as a tool, because eventually people will get burnt out and tired of it. Like in the beginning, Facebook was hot, but now Facebook is considered for people over 40.
What was the one before it that not Justin Bieber was on, but the other one?
Justin Timberlake was...
Justin Timberlake bought it. Was the first one,
I can't remember. Oh, that was MySpace.
MySpace, yeah. That was originally for musicians, and it got weird, and then he tried to revive it. So here's one of the things again, I know we're getting veer back, folks, so stick with us here. But when I came out to California, I got involved in the entertainment industry, and I was around the music industry, and I worked with some bands, people like the Police and some other stuff as a publicist and stuff.
Nice.
I wasn't a performer, but I was in the little back end there. And I have a few friends that got some record deals, had one or two things, came out, and then never heard of again. But in those days, it was all about the record label. You fought, you were in the clubs all over the country trying to get somebody to listen, trying to give you one of those magic spots, the handful of slots in the record label.
Right.
And then maybe they would promote you, and they didn't promote all the acts, so maybe you died, the record came out, and nobody got behind it.
Or they shelved your record.
They shelved it because the new administration came in and said, I don't want that was the old administration, I don't want them to look good.
Yeah.
Whatever happened, but it was all in their control. And it was all about the record was where you made the money. And the touring was what you did so people would buy the record.
Yeah.
Now it's flipped. Now you get a penny or two. Taylor Swift is always complaining she gets a penny or two off of each Spotify thing.
Yeah.
Very little does she make off of that, relative.
Yeah.
But she just made $2 billion, 2 B's, off of her Eros tour. The largest tour ever. So the Police a few years ago reunited, made $1 billion off the tour. So now the record you give away so people will come to the tour. It's reversed the economics entirely.
Yeah. And for me back then, when I started my record company, it was all about college radio. We would send CDs out to, which now you send out MP3s for the most part, and we would track the records, call the music directors, and see how the record's doing. We'd send a bunch of CDs and T-shirts and whatever we could.
Tickets to the show.
And
who did anybody you reckon? Because you're back in that era. There must have been a lot of ska and that stuff in Orange County.
But when I got my first break, Norman Winter Associates, Norman Winter introduced me to...
Who is Norman? Why do I know that name?
He's a publicist who broke Elton John here at the Troubadour Show.
Yes.
That was the famous Troubadour Show. Norman Winter was the publicist. Rest in peace, he died about 5 years ago. He was a good friend of mine, and he introduced me to the guy who signed Bob Marley in 1965.
Wow.
Named Danny Sims. And Danny Sims became my first mentor. and introduced me to everybody. Now, Danny Sims had a past, and he was the guy, if you've ever heard the stories where Bob Marley's estate was suing Danny Sims for publishing rights, Danny Sims was suing Bob Marley because...
Everybody sues everybody at some level. That's just how the game is played.
Yeah. So after I marketed Bob Marley because Danny had 250 songs.
Chris Blackwell and Island Records.
So Danny sold his contract of Bob Marley to Chris Blackwell, and the rest is history. When Bob Marley became huge, Danny started to go after Bob, saying, "Hey, I still own your publishing," and that's when the fighting went back and forth. But Danny, along the way, he was releasing all these songs, and I became the one that marketed them. He got a hold of me and he said, "My records aren't selling." He was really angry, and I said, "It's because you're marketing it to the wrong demographic. You need to market it to college students, because college students listen to Bob Marley and smoke pot."
That's right.
He gave me a budget. I hired 6 girls.
Of course.
Yeah, of course.
That would have worked
because all
well
the music directors at the time were male.
Right, yeah.
And they sweet-talked him. In 5 weeks, we had that record to #1, even through the
They used to have college charts and everything.
Yes,
too.
CMJ.
Right.
CMJ. And
I was there when College Media Journal started way back when. I was one of their early...
The Weekly.
I went to their first...
CMJ New Music Fest in New York. I would go every year.
Yeah.
And then all the other record companies started calling me. "Hey, we saw what you did for Danny. Can you do it for us?" And then I got into into movies. My first movie was a studio called and said, "Hey, we got a movie that's coming out. I want to know if you'll market it."
So you're an independent with these people?
Yeah.
Freelancer?
Yeah, freelance, yeah. And I didn't have a degree in it. It just fell into my lap. And and one key, and this is why I say to students and to parents, find out what you're good at. Because like you, Paul, no one can teach what it is you do. Your voice and all that stuff. I mean, but it comes within you, and then it comes out the more you do it. It's your passions. And then I've had clients tell me the reason why we hired you, Rudy, is because we could see you got it and you understand, you have a passion for what you do, and that's what we want. We want to pay you for your passion.
So do you still teach kids about that world, or has that world totally changed and it's a new world now?
No, because there are some things that I believe just
everybody wants to be around music and movies.
Yes, and we tell them like right now I'm mentoring somebody in Cincinnati, Ohio, and she wants to come out here. She's going to go to the LACM College of Music, LACM, and long story short, I've got her reading different books. I meet with her every 2 weeks through Zoom, and then I meet with her parents on the weekend, and we talk about goals and such. And I've got her reading David Geffen's The Operator book. I had her read 2 books by Malcolm Gladwell, The Outliers, talks about the 10,000 hour thing. I had her read Flea's book. I had to read Geddy Lee's book, My Effin' Life.
Geddy Lee.
Yeah, Geddy Lee's book.
That's supposed to be wild. You're talking about Rush.
Oh, my gosh, yeah. And the reason why, and my whole process of mentoring her, and I told her parents, she needs to read these things because she's going to be coming out here to going to the school, living in Pasadena, and she's from Cincinnati, and she's never lived in the city before. She needs to read all of this stuff about these people, so this way when she gets her, she can say, "Oh, I read about somebody."
And I'm going to tell you the other thing you should teach her if you haven't already is that talent is only what gets you in the door. It doesn't get you to the top.
You're absolutely right.
I say this because when I came, I did try singing when I came into town here, and I did meet other musicians, several of whom became much more successful than I was at it. They weren't always the best.
Yeah. Even now you've got those auto-tune things. And yeah, you're absolutely. I had this conversation with Bill today, Bill Waldo, and we were talking about it's not just all about talent. It's about
they all had talent coming in the door. They all had talent.
Yeah.
Like you come to be an actress. They're all pretty. They were all the prettiest girl in their town.
Yeah.
Now what? Now how do you stand up above the crowd? You said in college everybody's studying marketing. Okay, they're all good. They're all here. Why are you going to be the one that stands out above the others? It isn't just because you got more talent. Something you got more moxie, more spunk, more get up and go. That was David Geffen's story always.
Yes.
I used to say when he started at the mailroom at William Morris.
That's right.
He said if they all came in at 6, I came in at 4.
Yeah, and they all hated him for it.
They all hated him for it. But that's the kind of I could give you lots of stories we could talk about. All right, let's talk about this story though that we're really here supposed to be plugging. Not just your fascination with music and how that led to this fascination with mentoring and helping college students have a plan, which most of them don't, which I didn't. Let's talk about the SBDC. How did they help you in plan this stuff here? How did you find them? How did you come to them? What did they do for you?
So before it was College Web Mentor, and then I rebranded it to College Ed Tech, it was College Web Media.
Okay.
And it was Bill Waldo. That guy has been...
He's one of the gurus in our 100-plus network, been around forever.
Brilliant.
We're talking about the Finance Center now.
Yeah, he's brilliant. And Bill was the one where I would pitch my ideas to him, tell him what I'm doing, which direction I'm going, and he was always devil's advocate. But at the same time, he was also very supportive.
Right. Wasn't there just to shoot you down, but to tell you the truth.
Yeah, to tell me the truth. And that's what you want. You want somebody that's not going to BS you, that's not going to be like, oh, great. And then when you walk out the door, I'm going to go home and get my coffee or whatever.
Yeah,
somebody who actually thinks and cares about what it is you're doing because they see the passion within you.
Mm-hmm. And they have a passion or a background in helping others.
Absolutely. And
Bill's not a young guy, right?
Yeah, but he's successful in his own right. He looks young. But
he looks good, but
he looks great.
But he looks great. He and I are probably in the same age range or something.
Well, he was the one that would say, "Looks good, sounds good, Rudy, but you got to do this." Mm-hmm. And I needed that. I needed somebody that could see the big picture, and then somebody who would be like, "Okay, I can see that work." So then the synergy started.
But he doesn't usually work with people as just mentors. He's more focused on the Finance Center, and maybe I'm wrong.
Yes, and that was...
Because there are consultants out there that you go to a regular center, and they'll work with you, and they'll try and find somebody who has some background like you have, or somebody that might help you and mentor you and show you. And they've got a phenomenal list of people. Go check it out. People who've been there and done that. And then all old fogies like me, there's a bunch of young, hip people that are doing it still today. It's not other organizations. It's not just old, retired people. Having said that, Bill, and I don't know his whole background, but I know Bill is very well thought of in the network, but he's really works in the Finance Center. That's the specialty center.
And that was one of the goals for me, because he came straight out and he said to me, "You're not ready."
Yeah.
And I was
That's what I would think. Bill would say, go to somebody else when you're ready.
And okay, I don't know if it's just my stubbornness, determination, or whatever. I'm like, all right, I'm going to get ready. And he was like, okay, come back when you're ready. And his doors were always open for me, and whenever I email him, hey, I'd like to set up a time and request some of your time, he shoots me 2 dates and says, pick one. And it's just been that way,
Yeah, because usually, Bill, you got to go through some other layers to get to people like Bill. There are people in the organization at the Marketing Center, the Finance Center, some of the specialty centers, the Contracting Center, that won't take you in off the door if you've just got an idea.
Yeah.
There are other centers that will work with you, helping to develop the idea, get the basics in place, and then send you somewhere. But you went right to the top.
We've been working for years together, and we're
lucky.
We're friends now. Yeah, we consider ourselves friends. We text each other during the holidays. I'll text him my martini glass, and
you just don't take no for an answer. All of a sudden, you just walk in and you're working with record labels. You walk in, you're working with musicians. You walk in, you're working with one of the gurus in the network here. Right?
Yeah, I tell students this: when someone sees that passion in your eyes and they feel your energy, they're not going to turn you away. Even if you just keep coming back and back and back, they're going to, God, this guy's a pain in the ass. Fine, hire him. Let him dump the trash. And then that's all you need is your way in. Oh, here's a story.
Okay.
Real quick, Paul.
Last
story. I wanted to get in the entertainment industry. So I was working at Home Depot. This is after I quit school, right?
Yeah.
And a friend of mine who was at UCLA, she said, Rudy, if you want to be in the industry, what are you doing working at Home Depot? And I just felt like such a jackass. I'm like, yeah.
I need money.
So I quit. Got a job at Chili's bussing tables, then became a food server, and during the day I was out looking for work at record companies, and at night I worked the night shifts, or serving, whatever.
Know it well.
So I would leave Chili's at 1:30 in the morning, and I would drive to all the recording studios. I went to Warner Brothers, Capitol, A&M at the time, now it's Jim Henson. And I would go to all of the security gates, and I'd just talk to security guards.
Because they won't let you in.
They wouldn't let me in, but I kept going back and back. And then one day I realized, and I tell students that if you're trying to break in, look for opportunity, because no one's going to give it to you. Mm-hmm. And so what I did is I went to A&M Records, went to the gate, and the security guard walked up to me, and he says, can I help you? And I'm like,
on La Brea.
Yeah, La Brea and Sunset. And he goes, can I help you? And I'm like, yeah, I want to get in the industry, but I'm not
you
trying to go
in. You and 1,000 other people.
Yeah, and they just looked at me like, who is this guy? And I said, and they're like, you can't hang out here. All right, so I came back the next night after work. And this was like 2:30 in the morning. And then, so I went back the following weekend and did the same thing. But on a Saturday, the following weekend, I noticed one thing. And I love to tell the story when I'm guest speaking at colleges. And I'm holding my coffee, and I said, what do you think that I came back with? And nobody guesses the answer except for maybe one student. They're like, coffee. I'm like, exactly. I came back with 4 cups of coffee from Winchell's Donuts and 2 dozen donuts. And I walked up to the gate. And then they came, the security guard walked up to me and he looked at me like, huh. And I said, I just said, I know you guys got a night shift. You could probably use the coffee. This is for you guys. And the guy looked at me first, huh. And he opened the door or the gate. I passed him everything. And I said, you guys have a good night. And he goes, okay. And then by that time, all the security are like, what the hell's going on over there? So they come over and right on, whatever.
Yeah.
And I left. I asked for nothing.
Wow.
And then I went back the following weekend with more donuts and more coffee. After a month of that, Paul, they started saying, hey, come on in, just sit with us. And then after a month of that, hey, why don't you walk the rounds with us? I walked into Herb Albert's office. I walked into Paul Williams' piano room. Mm-hmm. I walked to all the studios, and they were just walking me around. And then finally, after 3 months, a guy named Henry, he says, you still want a job here, Rudy? I go, yeah. And he goes, and he pulls out a piece of paper, and he writes, and this was like 3:30 in the morning because I would hang out with them.
Yeah.
And he writes down this guy's name, Shelly Yakas. And he says, call this guy on Thursday at 2:30 because that's when he takes his breaks. And he was the recording engineer who recorded Van Morrison's Moon Dance album. He recorded Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, Damn the Torpedoes, tons of people. And so I did. I called that Thursday from Walnut, California, and Shelly answered the phone. And I said, hello, Henry told me that you guys are hiring for Gophers and $5 an hour. And he goes, yeah. Henry told you this? And I said, yeah. And he goes, can you come down for an interview? And I said, sure. And he goes, can you come now? And I'm like, absolutely. Can you be in 45 minutes? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, great. I'll see you there. And we hung up. I jumped in the car and drove out to Hollywood.
That's what it takes.
Exactly. I got there. He lets me in. He says, okay. He interviews me right in the front. And he says, when can you start? When do you need me to start?
How about now?
And I said, great. And he goes, and that's what takes part of being an opportunity is you got to say yes. You can't say, well, I can start next week.
I wish we had another hour.
You start now.
I could give you a half a dozen stories like that.
You got to have me back and we'll talk about that stuff.
Because that is what it takes, and that's what they don't teach.
Yes.
And that's what it really takes, particularly if you want to get into things like entertainment, music, with a million other people.
And that's what it was. And guess where he told me to take him? He goes, let's start now. And I said, okay. And he goes, take me to DMV. He got in my car. I drove to DMV, and he renewed his license. And I just stood there next to him, and that was my job. I got everybody their food. I was the gopher boy.
On the other side.
I was on the other, and I was in, and that's how I got started. I made it happen.
So if you want that kind of tenacity on your team, if you wanted somebody who's going to teach you the ropes and not just the book learning, if you want to figure out how to take what you've done and turn it into something real, boy, do you need a coach, and if we got one to do it, give us the website. How do they find it?
collegeedtech.com. And I got to say this, God bless Bill Walda for being there with me. And just today when I saw him, I'm like, Bill, I'm going to make this happen. He goes, oh, no, I can see that.
He's the Herb Albert of our organization.
He's the Herb Albert. Yeah. Thank you so much, Paul.
All right, thank you. Any websites, anything else, phone numbers, just all that stuff?
If you can text me or call me at 909-645-0598 or email Rudy, RUDYAMP, RudyAmp@gmail.com.
There you go.
Cheers.
Rudy Chavarria?
Chavarria. Or Chavarria.
Like I sound, that Midwestern accent. Chavarria.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming. What a story.
Cheers.
Right, thanks.
That was fun.
As we conclude another episode of the Profit Talks podcast, we hope we've empowered your entrepreneurial spirit. Reach out to us to connect with our experts, and let's take your business to the next level. Keep those dreams alive, keep pushing forward, and stay tuned for more. And if you liked what you heard in today's podcast and you want your business to reach new heights, just contact us at profittalkspodcast.org or call us at 1-800-616-7232. That's 1-800-616-7232. So until next time, keep thriving.